The market turns down Friday to end the quarter, but then looks to bounce over the weekend. Where do we head from here? This is Invest with Jacob. Okay, guys, so in last week's video, we talked about the fact that the market should be looking to bounce toward that 43.80 area and then turn down from there, and that's exactly what we saw. The market bounced up towards 43.70 and then turned down to end the day in the red. Now the market appears to be bouncing over the weekend, so the question is, which way are we going? I'll get into that in just one second, but first, if you're new here, welcome to the show, guys. My name is Jacob Gabbard, and this is Invest with Jacob, where we use Elliott Wave Theory to break down the SP 500 and the NASDAQ. I highly encourage you to hit that subscribe button down below so that you can get our daily S&P updates, our trade setups, and our buy alerts. All right, guys, before we jump into the charts, as always, the reason we do this is to help traders understand the market, make money, and do better saving their money against what could be a bear market coming up. As you can see on the screen, we are doing that for many traders, and if you want to be part of this winning team, stay tuned for later in the video. But for now, let's jump into the chart and take a look. Okay, guys, so here we are on the 1-hour futures chart for the S&P 500, and as we talked about on Friday, we were looking for that bounce towards 43.70 and a rejection, which we got. They moved down, and then we got a bounce up here over the weekend. So we're looking at this as basically one of two ways. The first would be that this is all of wave 4, okay, this red wave 4, and what we're looking at is red wave 5 to the downside, where we'd have 1 and 2 in place, and we target, after the whole move, the 42.34 area. Now, this is a little bit lower than our pivot at 42.46, and anytime you break the pivot, that's a problem. That's a problem for the bulls. The one caveat I will give on this particular pivot is this is the ES pivot, and the cash market SPX pivot is slightly lower than this. So I could see a scenario where we poke below, hold this area, and still go higher. I would be very cautious about that if they break 42.46, and I'd really want to see proof to the upside before I bought into that wholeheartedly. But this would be my first path that we could take here, and that would be the path to the downside to the 42.34 area. Now, equal in weight of a path here is that this was just the A wave up, we got B down, and we'd be looking for a C wave up towards 44.06, about 4,400 or so on the ES. And then we would look for that wave 5 down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that holds the pivot and starts higher. Both of those counts would be bullish counts in the long run, where we look lower first and then are looking higher after that. And if that's going to be the case, okay, they really should hold 42.46, with the exception of potentially poking through that, but really holding this level, this 42.30 area. They really need to hold in that. That would still hold the SPX pivot, which is still valid, and we would watch that area closely, and then I would want them to prove it to the upside after that. Any break of 42.46 means the bounce has to hold the SPX pivot and prove it to the upside, because quite often when the SPX pivot breaks, then when the futures pivot breaks, the SPX pivot will break as well. So 42.46 still an incredibly important number. If they break through that, we need to watch what happens. If they can hold this 42.30 area and reverse, that would still hold the SPX pivot and push higher. Anything below that, and we start to look lower and a bigger wave to the downside, that would set up the bigger C wave overall, which would be a much more bearish outcome in the long run. Over on the NASDAQ, okay, so on the NASDAQ, they did hold a very key level, this 618 at 14,801. They held that over the week, or on Friday, and pushed up from there, and have pushed up from there over the weekend. If they're going to continue with this bullish path we've been talking about, which would indicate that the bottom was in, we'd be looking for this to be 1, 2, 3, then 4 back, and then we would be working on 5 up towards the 14,133 area. The NASDAQ does have a potential to just be in a corrective move higher. This was a very deep wave 4, but it did hold the bottom of the pivot, which was the key number we talked about. It also held wave 4 of a lower degree, which would be corrective depth theory, which would also tell us that we could still get this 5 waves up to be a little bit more bullish on NASDAQ. My issue is that ES is not nearly as bullish. It's a pretty clear 3-wave structure, and it would have to trace out a diagonal to finish all this out, and that's just not that likely. So I'm very cautious about this bullish structure on the NASDAQ, but the next target higher would be this 15,133 area. Then we'd look for a wave 2 pullback, and then a 1-2 setup and a breakout from there. The other count that we could have on the NASDAQ is that this was wave 4 up, and we'd be looking at 1 down, 2 up, and then 3, 4, and 5 down. And that 3, 4, and 5 down would take us to the 14,486 area. That would be well above the pivot on the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ is still well above its pivot, which also tells me we are a little bit more bullish than bearish, and we should be holding a low fairly soon here if we didn't already hold this low, and pushing higher on the NASDAQ as well. So we are still in a bullish context until the pivot breaks. They have not broken the pivot on either chart. And the NASDAQ does look more bullish than the ES overall because of its structure. And this is what happened when they broke out the first time. NASDAQ was definitely more bullish, where the ES was building more of a diagonal structure and caught up. And we went up to 4,600. So very cautiously optimistic on a bull side run here. But in the big scheme of things, the pivots are what matters. And the pivot on the NASDAQ is 14,128, so well below where we are now. The pivot on ES is that 4246 area, or 4243 area, which needs to hold, with the caveat if they push slightly below that, it still holds the SPX pivot and can push higher. Guys, if you love the information I put out in these videos and you want real-time market updates from me, you need to check out investwithjacob.com. There's a link down in the description. Go ahead and click that link and it'll take you right over to the website. Once you're there, check out our membership plans area. We have 2 incredible plans, and they both come with a 7-day free trial because I want you to get in there. I want you to make sure you love it and become part of the trading team before you ever spend a penny. You can cancel at any time. We also have our Elliott Wave for Beginners online course. This course is helping real traders make real money and finally understand the stock market in a way that makes sense. If you're trying to figure out the news cycles and why the market goes up on bad news and down on good news, you're going to be confused for the rest of your life. But if you understand Elliott Wave Theory, technical analysis, and fibs, you will finally understand the key levels that need to hold, the support and resistance levels that matter, and why the market moves the way it does. It is 25 videos in 3 sections where I go over an introduction, we go over your expectations, mindset, the KISS method, and why Elliott Wave works. We do our chart setup and tools where we go through every tool you need for your chart so that you can find these Elliott Wave levels and how they work. And we go through the Elliott Wave for Beginners area where I go through every Elliott Wave, how it works, what its targets are, what its failure points are, as well as the theory of alternation, the corrective depth theory, the pivot, and everything you want to know to understand the market in a way you never have before. The really cool thing about the course is it does come with both of our monthly plans. So if you don't want to pay for the course on its own, you can join one of our rooms and get it for free. In our first room, the Invest with Jacob room, you get all of my real-time market updates, all of my buy and sell alerts, all of your Elliott Wave questions answered, a midday video where I go over exactly where we are in the counts and what to expect, as well as the training material you just saw. We trade the SPY and the QQQ, and we swing trade, which means our trades can last anywhere from a few days to a few months. We don't trade quite as often as a day trading room does. However, if you are interested in day trading as well as individual stocks, you need to check out PT's Throne Room. In there, you get everything you get in the Invest with Jacob room, as well as day trading, individual stocks, and PT's reduced risk binary method that absolutely crushes the market. He gets you in at a cheap price and gets you big multiples on your money, and it's how he structures his trade that's so unique. Something you really have to see to understand, and that's another reason we give you that 7-day free trial. He also started a challenge account where you put $4,000 into an account, trading mini ES futures, averaging 3 to 4% gains per week, showing you how to build a small account into a large retirement or savings account. Guys, we would love to have you in these rooms so we can all make money together. Key takeaways for today, it's pretty simple on the ES. As long as we hold under the wave 4 high that we set on Friday, they can still push lower down toward the 4235 area, where they must hold as they start to get into the level of support where if it breaks, the bull count will end. They must hold that level, and then they would push higher. However, if they do push over Friday's high, then we would look for 4406 area to be the next level of resistance and a push down there for wave 5 overall. Overall, the NASDAQ, a little bit more bullish of a count, but it's not the most bullish friendly, as they did come all the way back to the 618 after hitting the 1618, which is a very deep retrace, but it did hold the prior level wave 4. We would look for them to continue to push higher up towards 15133 and then pull back from there in a wave 2. If they do fail to the downside, we would look for them to break through this wave 4 low, which is right here at about the 14801 area, and then proceed down toward 14486 and a bigger wave, in a wave 5 that would complete the move down, and then look for a bounce from there. Guys, that is your market update for today. I will talk to you tomorrow.